The Innovator Series, Radio Live.
This is Henry Oliver, editor of RadioLIVE, talking to Rab Heath, co-founder of Haptly. You say that you pivoted. What were your earlier ventures before Haptly?
So before Haptly, I co-founded OMG Tech with Vaughan Rosell and Michelle Dickinson. How I got into startups was originally having your references online for flatmates, because I had a really, really bad flat. At the time, I was, this business thing's really cool, so maybe I'll go to university and learn how to start businesses. And I accidentally turned up an hour early, and it was Computer Science 101. And by the end of that lecture, I thought, well, this comp sci technology stuff, I should get up on this bandwagon. So started doing that alongside my business degree, and met a guy, started a web dev company, ended up giving my half back to him because it wasn't quite the right founder dynamic. Ended up doing a bunch of stuff in e-commerce, had one of them was a moustache wax and beard oil company called Mustachio Co., which sold stuff in the US, UK, Italy, Australia, supplied Movember. Ended up doing some ad tech kind of lead gen stuff with through affiliate networks, and we started making some pretty decent money at the time, and I ended up dropping out of university, which is the usual cliche as well, but so I took a break and came up to Auckland and did some kind of contract consulting work within the startup ecosystem, and ended up meeting Vaughan, Michelle, and then ended up meeting Nelson and working on Haptly. So all sorts of random stuff.
So what prompted you to look for help externally?
Well, it's always a balance between, staying the course in terms of seeing how far you can bootstrap before raising private equity. And so when we heard about the Xone program, they had really good terms, right? So they've given us a nice little 25k packet of seed funding without equity, and we also get to work with them. So it was more of it was opportunistic to a certain extent. Timing was really good, and we were looking for how we were going to fund the first kind of 3 to 6 months of bootstrapping and R&D, and it all lined up really well.
And what have you learned from your experience with Vodafone Xone?
It's awesome to see corporates kind of taking a punt on taking some risk. I mean, they didn't have to do this with us or any of the other companies. They're not taking equity. Obviously, there's benefits in other ways, but I think it's exciting to see the nature of corporates in New Zealand, being led by Vodafone in this kind of instance to work with us.
What have you been doing differently since you started working with a mentor?
To be honest, not a huge amount to date. So the program's only been running for a month, and it's still super early days. Yeah. We've got a bunch of different mentors, and some of them come from Vodafone, some of them come from the wider industry as well. So it definitely helps to have sounding boards, right? To check, reason. Yeah. And
so from your experience so far, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to someone who has, a really good idea and wants to try and turn it into a business?
Do something you're passionate about, right? It's the real cliche stuff, but it's going to be hard as hell. So, doing something where you feel like you create value and it excites you, and, you want to wake up and work on it in the morning is going to be the main factor to your success. I'm passionate about how we meet the world's growing need for food, and how do we meet, by 2050 there's a 70% increase in demand, and so how do we meet that demand while also, minimising impact on the environment.
That's this week's Vodafone Xone Innovator Series. You can listen back to the night stories or share the links to them at radiolive.co.nz, at zone.vodafone.co.nz, and at ideologue.co.nz. Join us at 7:30 next Thursday, and we'll hear from Lisa King from Eat My Lunch and Sean Ryan from SLI Systems. Thanks to Vodafone Xone and Ideologue, I'm Mark Sainsbury, and after the latest from News Hub, it's Your Nights with Karen Hay.
The Vodafone Xone Innovator Series, Radio Live.